Welcome to the Locked On Heat 2006 NBA Finals rewatch. We're going to go back to Game 4 today, which is the first game in which the Heat looked fully in control. We'll take a look at the big adjustments that they made and how Dwyane Wade established himself as the best player in the series. All of that and much more coming up next.
Terry puts it up. Won't go. Rebound Wade. The Miami Heat, they've done it. They win their first championship in franchise history.
Congratulations, Miami Heat. 2006 NBA champions.
But it was our time. I really believe that it was our time.
It's one of the best feelings I ever had in my life. So I'm going to live it up. So we deserve it.
Welcome to our fifth installment of the Locked On Heat 2006 NBA Finals rewatch. Thank you so much for subscribing on YouTube, Odyssey, and wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil. Thank you for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. We're going back to the 2006 finals and diving into each game, asking the biggest questions, discussing the best performances, and tracing how Dwyane Wade led the Heat to their first ever championship. Today, we're rewatching Game 4, a 98-74 win over the Dallas Mavericks as the Heat even the series. David, why don't you set the stage for us?
Oh, absolutely. It was a historic performance from Dwyane Wade in Game 3. Just one of four guards at the time, according to the broadcast, to score over 40 points and pull down 10 rebounds in a finals game, joining Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, and Jerry West. And it was enough to give Miami a chance. The big question, however, was how the Mavericks would respond after their first loss in the series, and if Miami had the killer instinct to continue seizing the moment. Dallas tweaked their starting lineup with Devin Harris replacing Adrian Griffin, hoping his speed would be able to challenge Wade. It didn't really work, of course, with Wade notching 14 points in the first quarter and continuing his total dominance in the series. Shaquille O'Neal would be aggressive in his support of Wade, but picked up two fouls early on, as well as a forearm across the head from Jerry Stackhouse when it was clear that the momentum was still rolling in Miami's favor. Dallas was actually able to build a small lead midway through the first quarter, but Pat Riley, who had seemingly been outcoached by Avery Johnson during the first two games of the series, began to make his own imprint on the finals. Extensive use of the zone defense, putting the ball in Wade's hands more often and getting creative on offense, and a masterful use of his rotation, giving Alonzo Mourning big minutes early on, keeping James Posey out on the floor during the key stretches, and even utilizing Shandon Anderson for an impactful stretch midway through the game. The Heat were up 13 points at the half, the biggest lead in the series up to that point, and the crowd was energized. Chants of David Hasselhoff echoing through the arena to rattle Dirk Nowitzki, who struggled from the field, but in an ironic twist was still getting to the line with some questionable calls. Miami was explosive offensively, led by Wade's 24 first-half points, and did the job defensively. But as good as the Heat were, what stood out to me was how bad the Mavericks were. With aside from an 8-0 run to cut the lead to 10 at the end of the third quarter, Dallas was just plain awful offensively. With 10 and a half minutes left in the game, they had scored 70 points and only managed four more for the rest of the game, collapsing in key moments and watching as the Heat would blow out the game wide open in the fourth to tie the series and never look back.
So your takeaway is that the Mavericks were really bad, but you mentioned earlier how Pat Riley started putting the ball in Dwyane Wade's hands more early and more often, and that to me was my takeaway, and it's something that you and I had talked about watching the first few games of the series, is because we know obviously how this ends, and we know how much that Dwyane Wade takes over, and it was just a matter of time before the offense stopped running through Shaq in the post, basically every single offensive possession, and started running more through Dwyane Wade. And the very first play of the game, we see Dwyane Wade bring the ball up, run a screen and roll with it goes from Shaq, and then he kind of goes right around Udonis Haslem, and then hits that pocket pass to Shaq, running towards the rim. And that was my takeaway, was that finally it's the Dwyane Wade offense, more than it ever had been. Even after the 42-point game that he had in Game 3, this was more Dwyane Wade than we had ever seen in the finals up to this point. And I actually thought that Shaq was a huge beneficiary of that as well, because now all of a sudden, instead of throwing it into him and asking him to throw out the post moves the way that he did with the Lakers in his prime, he was getting more complimentary buckets, right? And he was just easier scoring for Shaq. And then obviously with Dwyane Wade being the player that he is at this time, he was the guy who was more apt to carry the offense than Shaq at this point in his career. And so now you have this entire offense running through Dwyane Wade. And I think you saw the ripple effects of that across the offense. They scored more efficiently than they had ever had. That, in turn, helped their defense. And to me, this was the first game, not the first game that the Heat won, but the first one that they were fully in control and just flatly looked like the better team. Because even in Game 3, you could argue that Dallas looked like the better team outside of that fourth quarter, right? But then you've got I thought this game, the Heat, they led wire to wire, and I thought they dominated the Mavericks and finally looked like they had eclipsed them as the better team in the series.
They showed like the full package. That was one of the things that stood out. It was like the defense was fine. Again, the use of the zone, I think it may have challenged Dallas just enough there, but they were still missing wide open shots. Like shots that Dirk had been able to make throughout the whole playoff run. He just was simply missing there. And give credit to UD, to James Posey, Antoine Walker, anybody that guarded him for an extensive period of time. But I saw a lot of missed opportunities there for Dallas. Having said that, you're right. I think Miami really showed just a full command of everything. Offensively, they were more fluid. You saw Shaq being able to use his passing in Game 3. He was still able to do so in Game 4, of course, still being able to get guys going, looking for those cutters along the back door there. I think that was a great, just nice flowing offense. You just saw him being a little bit more mobile too, with Wade having the ball in his hands. It was so clear that Dallas was so scared of watching Dwyane go off that you would get a double or triple team as he was collapsing into the paint. Like he would just draw the defense in, and then you had Zoe or Alonzo Mourning or somebody else on the floor as a beneficiary for that. So that was certainly, there was, as you said, a ripple effect to Dwyane's dominance there. But it was interesting.
The Dirk Nowitzki thing too.
Yeah.
Antoine Walker, we had him on the show on Monday, and if you haven't checked out that interview, if you're a Heat fan, you're going to love it. Even no matter, we get into a lot of different topics. He was great. One of the things he said about the 2006 finals was one of the adjustments that they had made, shifting the series from Dallas to Miami, was they wanted to be more physical with Dirk Nowitzki. And that was very apparent. Almost in it wasn't dirty. It wasn't dirty, but it was close. It was getting there where they were.
It was
they were
physical. It was Heat basketball, right?
It was
what
Heat
fans have
basketball,
come to
and
call.
Again, it was okay. It was Heat basketball, which also might be bordering on dirty at that point. But that's what it was. They got away with it, and Dirk had a problem with it, and had a tough shooting game. He was 2 of 14, 1 of 5 overall, or 1 of 5 from 3-point range. The Mavericks overall as a team from 3-point range were 3 of 22. So certainly part of this was just shots did not go in. But I also thought that Miami had a big impact on why that was, because they were so physical. And again, that was my takeaway. This was the game where the Heat dictated the terms of engagement, as opposed to Dallas, who were getting out and running in a way that bothered Miami in the first 3 games, and it wasn't really happening for the Mavericks here.
Did you, at any point in time rewatching this, did you think, oh, Dallas was going to be able to come back? Or I mean, obviously you know what the outcome is, but even in getting lost in the moment, suspension of disbelief, as they would say, you still don't feel like Dallas is ever going to really be able to claw their way back. And then that last 10.5 minutes, 4 points. Can you imagine? I don't think we've ever seen that, especially not in the finals. I mean, somebody's going to get to the line, somebody's going to get a shot. 4 points over a 10.5 minute stretch in a crucial game that defines the series, basically, and they just kind of crapped the bed completely.
Let's get to some trivia. I've got a couple for you
here.
All right. First question. In Game 3, Dwyane Wade became the 4th guard in finals history to record at least 40 points and 10 rebounds in a single game. This is the stat that you mentioned earlier, along with Jerry West, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan. Here's the question.
All right.
Who is the only guard to record at least 40 points and 10 rebounds in a finals game since D-Wade did it in 2006?
Oh, Jimmy Butler?
No.
No?
Jimmy Butler, I think, is still technically recorded as a forward.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's fine. 40 points, 10 rebounds. Oh, no, I don't know. I can't think of it.
Steph Curry. 43 points and 10 rebounds in Game 4 of these last finals, 2020.
Oh, wow.
In the deciding Game 4, basically. That was the one that turned the series for them.
Did they even mention it in the broadcast?
In 2006? No, I don't think so.
No. Did they mention Steph Curry? No. Did they mention Steph Curry as being like a historic, performance at that point?
During the Game 4 or Game 5? I guess it would have been the Game 5. But I don't recall.
I don't even. That seems like it seems like you're picking at numbers there, but it's just that Dwyane's performance was so strong. And I know we'll talk about his continuing growth and expansion and everything else like that. But like the fact that he had such a big game in Game 3 and they're like scrambling to find some kind of historical context, I thought that was pretty interesting as well.
It's still a great company, even if you throw Steph Curry in there. It's great company either way. I'm going to save my last trivia question for later in the show, okay?
All right.
Because I think it'll be better later. But we'll get to our turning point in the game and, of course, our flashbulb moment, the moment that added to Dwyane Wade's legacy after the break. But first, today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your betting needs. Find your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports wagering information. From live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts, they have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. Back here with our 2006 NBA Finals rewatch. Let's get to the turning point of Game 4 here. What do you have?
I'm going to defer to you on this one because to me, as we were just talking about in segment 1, it was so a complete dismantling and dominance from Miami. They were just doing everything and they controlled basically the whole game. I don't know that there was one singular moment that stands out to me, so I'm curious to hear if you've got something.
This one's a little manufactured. It didn't really feel like the turning point.
It has to be.
But I'll go with this. To me, this was the dagger. I'll put it that way. James Posey's 3 with 7.5 minutes left.
That's what I got.
Yeah.
To push it to 15?
Pushes the lead to 15. Dallas was sort of hanging in there, 10, 11-point deficit. Miami just kept coughing the ball up. Turnovers really just prevented them from pulling away. Posey's 3. And then the free throws, a couple possessions after that, he drives to the rim, gets fouled, hits a couple free throws. 5 points within, basically a minute and a half for him. I feel like that was the dagger. That kind of put the game away.
Yeah, I've got the same thing. It's just funny because it's like, and even that, it's like, oh, you're pushed the lead from 12 to 15. It doesn't feel like a crucial turning point, but I don't know. Again, I hate to keep reiterating this because I don't want to take anything away from what Miami did, but Dallas crumbled in a way that I don't necessarily remember in thinking back at the series. I know at the time I was a little jaded against Dirk in particular because he was the star of the team, right? And I'm not sure exactly what it was, but I liked how UD was able to challenge him and pressure him. I didn't like Dirk's game at all at that point in time, which maybe I've matured and evolved since then. But it's just to see this game play out. He was just so bad the whole time. The whole team crumbled. It was just very, very peculiar to see it.
It was what the knock on Dirk was early in his career, basically up until he won the championship in 2011 and got his revenge.
For sure.
And this was one of those games where it was like, okay, you know what? After 2011, everybody likes to do the revisionist history thing, like, oh, well, everybody called him soft and not clutch and all these things. And it's like, okay, well, games like this, maybe it was a little overstated, even in 2010 and 2011. But in a game like that, where he did crumble under the pressure and had one of the worst games by a star player in the finals in recent memory, that's the reason why people think that way. So I'm not saying that those things were absolutely accurate and not overstated, but it was these kinds of games that lead people to think that way. Let's just go right into the flashbulb moment here, because I almost had this as the turning point in the game, but it felt, 1, too early and in the game to be a turning point, and 2, I wanted to save it for my flashbulb moment. And this is going to be the pair of threes that Dwyane Wade made in the first half. That to me is my flashbulb moment, because he was clearly feeling his jumper, right? You talked about how the offense, how he got going early in the game. And how the Mavericks were so scared of him. A lot of that was because the jumper was just flowing, right? He was so comfortable with it. Obviously, the drives and the bank shots and on the layups and all that kind of stuff were there too, but he made a couple of threes in that first half, and it just felt like a total gut punch to Dallas. They're like, oh, he's going to be doing this too? And it just felt like like the wind were completely out of their sails, and they just never had a chance of getting back into that game. Interesting stat, though, and this is one of the reasons I included it in the flashbulb moment. D. Wade had made 13 three-pointers in the entire regular season. He ended up making 14 in the playoffs in total. That is Dwyane Wade, right? That's the Dwyane Wade that we have come to expect from there into the Big Three era, and then even later after the Big Three era and his return to Miami and all that kind of stuff. The purple shirt guy making the threes in front of him. This is D. Wade. This is legacy in the making here.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Fantastic moments from there. Like Twan talked about it, that you could just see that Wade was just so confident in his shot. And you look at the free throw numbers again. The takeaway in years since from Mavericks fans that are angry and bitter about how dominant he was, it was like, oh, he was getting all these phantom foul calls. He took 9 free throws below his season average.
Dirk took 13 in that game.
Yeah, exactly. That was pretty ironic, as I mentioned before. And look, and he was still just getting his jumper going. Like those shots were, I mean, they were beautiful. It was to me watching it was Jordan-esque. It was like, oh, he had a little bit of room, and he was getting the bank shot going from 18 feet away, like just ridiculous on his jumper. Like the confidence was absolutely there, and the threes were fluid. Like we never really saw that kind of shooting from him. Like from that point forward, it was just like he was so explosive getting to the rim. He didn't need to be that player, but we saw it in moments here and there, and all of a sudden you're going, oh yeah, that's right, vintage Wade, like everybody talks about. Really, really just strong jumper game.
At the risk of gassing it up too much, and the Jordan-esque is exactly what I was thinking of too when I was watching it.
Yeah.
It was. Is that do you have a flash? Well, before I get to your flashball moment, this is actually the perfect time to go to the second trivia question that I held.
Okay, go for it.
All right. So Dwyane Wade made 2 3-pointers in Game 4, like we just talked about. He's going to end up making a total of 3 3-pointers the entire series on his way to winning Finals MVP. Okay. So here's the trivia question: who are the only other Finals MVPs since then to make 3 or fewer 3-pointers in a final series? Again, since Dwyane Wade did it. So 3 or fewer 3-pointers in a final series since D Wade for a Finals MVP.
Well, Shaquille O'Neal, I imagine.
No, since Dwyane Wade.
Oh, since, yeah. Oh, wow, that's a good point. Oh, Giannis?
Yep, Giannis. He made exactly 3 in 2021. There's one other one.
Oh, fine.
This
Oh,
one's
Andre
tougher.
Iguodala?
Giannis was easy.
No.
Iguodala made 14 threes in that final series. That's who I thought it was going to be. He made 14 threes in 2015 when they won it.
Kevin Garnett?
Garnett did not win. It was
Finals
Paul Pierce.
MVP?
Was Finals MVP Paul Pierce?
Was it Paul Pierce?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's not Paul Pierce, but yeah, he made like 9 or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of who else would
It's hard. This is hard. I'll give you one more guess.
Since 2006. Oh, it could have been Tim Duncan.
No, because it was Tony Parker, I think, who won Finals.
Oh, good point. All right, no, I don't have it.
LeBron James, actually.
No way.
Yeah, he only made 3 in 2012 when the Heat beat the Thunder. He only made 3 3-pointers in that entire series. Probably because he just got to the rim over and over again. He didn't have to do it. So,
yeah,
LeBron, it was surprising. That was a surprising one.
That is. Like he was still in that kind of growing and expanding his range a little bit. Like in the next series, in the next finals, I think he shot a lot more than that. Huh.
Next finals against the Spurs, he made I think like almost 15 threes in the entire series. So it was completely.
Well, everybody was expanding. That was kind of let's everybody take threes. Chris Bosh started expanding his range and become an incredible weapon there. My flashbulb moment isn't really like a kind of aside from those 3-pointers. Like there wasn't anything like crazy that stood out in terms of like a real like athleticism, but there was a moment there where like he kind of blew his assignment defensively, and I think he gave up a 3-pointer to Jerry Stackhouse in the corner, totally late on his rotation. And maybe this is more about Alonzo Mourning than it is about Dwyane Wade, but it kind of just shows the whole mentorship aspect there, that even as his star was rising, Zoe's kind of getting into it with Dwyane and telling him, look, this is what you got to do. This is different. You know, like this is how you have to move, keep your eyes open, et cetera, like that. So I think we're seeing Wade dominate at the same time. Well, he still has a lot to learn. Yeah. He wasn't the best version of him yet. And he was dominant in that series, but we saw a better version, more complete version of Dwyane for the next couple of seasons.
I'll tell you who was their best version. Then let's get into our next category, our Bang and Brown, when we discuss Mike Breen and Hubie Brown's broadcast. Hubie Brown put together a masterpiece, and we're still a game away from Dwyane Wade's absolute masterpiece. Hubie Brown had his masterpiece in Game 4. We have talked about how good he was on the broadcast through the first. He was just incredible. Just the way, not only explaining the game in an entertaining way, but doing so succinctly and at the right time and at the right moments. He has such a way of describing what's happening and teaching. This is a series from 16 years ago, and I was still kind of learning stuff a little bit, like seeing it through Hubie Brown's call. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. That is what they did there with the zone and that kind of thing. Right. And he just does it succinctly and clearly, and he's so easy to understand when he's describing these things. He makes it so relatable. I thought he was awesome. So the other moment that I want to talk about from the broadcast and this is related to Dwyane Wade and the whole legacy thing that we're talking about here. In the first quarter, Mike Breen and Hubie Brown discussing how the Mavericks had already at that point grown sick of Dwyane Wade and all the talk about his knee injury and all this stuff, and they just thought it was being completely gassed up and overblown. Here's the clip here.
Maverick fans and the Maverick players, they're tired of hearing about his injuries. In fact, Josh Howard said he's been saying he's hurt all series, so they're a little fed up with Dwyane Wade's problems.
Dwyane Wade was more of their problem after that game, I think.
Well, it's just funny. Like I had totally forgotten this whole idea, but I wonder if there was like the feeling, certainly from the Mavs players, that he was just kind of BSing them. It's like, oh man, my knee, I'm hurt. And then he goes out and torches him for 40-something points. Like, I could see why they would be frustrated. Like, you don't want to hear about that, but it's also, maybe it shows gamemanship. And also, I think things have changed to the point where, like, I don't want to care if, like, you told me on the scouting report that Jimmy Butler had a missing limb. I'd be like, no, he's still going to go out there and do something crazy. like you never, like, if Steph could go out there with a dislocated shoulder, I'd be like, no, I'm still worried about him out on the perimeter. Like, it doesn't matter at this point in time. But at that point, maybe they were taking it more seriously. Like, no, I believe him. He says his knee hurts, so I'm not going to guard him as closely. Like, I don't get it. Like, you saw the Jordan flu game, dude. That was like 13 years ago. I don't see why you would still be like, oh, he says he's hurt, and then not anticipate it. Maybe you would be tired of it, but
both MJ and D Wade probably embellished their knee injury and their flu a little bit, probably for the sake of the cameras.
Sure.
But the broadcast also compared Dwyane Wade to Jim Brown, I think, in the third quarter at one point. And Jim Brown famously used to get up slow after every tackle. That way the opponent never knew if he was hurt. Ricky Williams, the Dolphins running back, did the same thing. Used to talk about how Jim Brown told him the same thing. This is, I think, 5 years before Ricky Williams ends up in Miami. Dwyane Wade is doing it, right? He's sort of just limping around, and then suddenly he'll just spring in for a dunk, and you're just
He did have a moment there. That's what it was. He got a hit, and he's kind of like, he's like wincing, and he's grabbing his face, and he slowly jogs up court, and he's like drifting towards the corner there. And I think Howard was on him at that point, and he just smokes him. Like, he just crushes right past him, and Howard's like, that dude's not hurt at all. It was just unbelievable.
We are going to make a Hollywood remake of the 2006 finals next here on Locked On Heat. Back here with our 2006 NBA Finals rewatch on Locked On Heat. You can reach out to us on Twitter and on Instagram at Locked On Heat. Email us lockedonheat@gmail.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you missed the first few games, they're up on your podcast feed and on YouTube as well. Is our great interview with Antoine Walker. That is up on YouTube as well as wherever you listen to your podcasts. Before we get to our Hollywood Finals remake, quickly, role player of the game for this one, and I wanted to get to this specifically because I thought there was a few different guys that we could nominate here. Who would you nominate for your role?
I got Posey. I think Twan had a big game. Shaq was a good supporting role. Even Alonzo contributing on the defensive end. But Posey got his own little montage too in the fourth quarter, which I thought that was pretty interesting. And I guess there were kind of like glimpses. They mentioned his age, which they only do if he's like a star on the rise kind of thing. It's like, 29-year-old James Posey, a 3-and-D player, etc. Like I think they started to see that maybe he was going to be like maybe a future All-Star kind of thing is what the feeling was about Posey.
Posey's the right answer. I want to give a shout out to Alonzo Mourning. I thought the way that he set the tone in this game was so important early on. Had that hard foul on Dirk Nowitzki where he was going for the block, blocks the shot, but then definitely catches him on the arm, and then maybe puts his weight down on Dirk's back a little bit and drives him into the court. He was just sending a message, hey, buddy, it's not going to be easy for you anymore in Miami.
Their arms got tangled, Wes. Yeah, their arms got tangled. Hey, you saw that Stackhouse foul. I'm glad we're bringing up the officiating now, because that Stackhouse foul was like the first really hard foul of the series, and he clobbered Shaq, who was on a fast break. Like Jason Williams had the ball in his hands, leading the fast break. Shaq trailing him. Williams slows down, feeds the ball to Shaquille O'Neal, who goes up for the layup or dunk, and Stackhouse just kind of sort of goes for the ball. That'd be a flagrant 2 ejection in today's game.
We're about to do our Hollywood remake kind of jokey category thing here. But kind of when you're watching a movie, oftentimes you see like a minor actor or actress sort of steal every scene that he or she is in.
They chew the scenery.
Was that Dick Bavetta?
No, it was not.
Dick Bavetta had such a heavy hand on this game.
He No, I wouldn't say that he was chewing the scenery. No, I don't know. He was out there, like when they close up on him. It's a little bit more than HD television needed to see, I think, at the time, maybe. Yeah, he was. Yeah, he certainly got energy. How about that? I like the back and forth between him and Shaq. Like Shaq got teed up, and then he's kind of like laughing about it afterwards. That was hilarious.
Twice his size. Yeah, it was hilarious. All right, our Hollywood style NBA Finals remake. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to recast the 2006 NBA Finals starters with current NBA players. Okay? Just like if you were to remake an old movie with current actors, that's what we're doing with the finals from 2006 with 2022-2023 NBA players. So let's start with Miami's starting five. Jason Williams, Dwyane Wade, Antoine Walker, Udonis Haslem, Shaquille O'Neal. I'll let you go with any starter that you want to start with. David, who would you like to start with?
Shaq was the toughest one because, like, even at that point, still big, slow, dominant to me. All I had was Joel Embiid, like an injured Joel Embiid, not Joel Embiid at his peak because that guy's shooting threes and a little bit more quick at this point. He's just the face-up game, but injured Joel Embiid.
Yeah, like Joel Embiid on leg. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I like Joel Embiid was the obvious comp because Joel Embiid is now compared to prime Shaquille O'Neal, but we are so far beyond prime Shaquille O'Neal. So I was still looking for a guy who could put up 20 and 10, have a couple of assists.
But their games are different too. Like Embiid's face-up game, like Shaq never had that. It just wasn't something centers did at that point.
That's the other thing we're gonna kind of talk about as we like. Everybody sort of has a modern flair to them, which is sort of what makes us interesting, right? You know.
Right.
I went with DeAndre Ayton. Just because I think the level of dominance is not Joel Embiid level, but he could still take over probably a couple games in a series. Right. So it's almost like DeAndre Ayton is so – I think he's got a few years until he reaches his prime, and so he's just not as effective as his prime is going to be, and Shaq is several years beyond it. So I just want DeAndre Ayton. I'll take the next one here.
Go for it.
Jason Williams. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go with Cole Anthony.
Oh.
Kind of got – stylish flair, a little bit of a swagger, likes to jack up threes, not always at the best moment, but he'll just going to do it anyway. Kind of a stylish passer, a little bit of a liability on defense too. I'm going Cole Anthony.
I went with Trae Young. Undersized, like in context of like what Williams was doing in 2006, like taking these crazy threes from everywhere. Like the fact that Trae does it from like 30 feet out. That's nothing. Like that's the context, right? It's like, oh, that's a wild shot in today's game, but it's it's pretty makeable for him.
I almost want Trae Young, but he's so much better than Jason Williams is.
Yeah,
is the problem.
Well, I mean, was he? He wasn't really against Miami, but well, that's a whole other argument, I suppose.
That's true. Trae Young, as seen in round one, Hawks.
That's right.
Maybe.
That's
and
right.
That's actually Jason Williams was better than that. You get the next one.
I've got UD as PJ Tucker. Maybe it's too easy a comp, but I mean they threw an alley-oop to UD. Just the versatility on defense. Like this was a different version of what players or fans remember about UD. Like he was struggling offensively, but he just does enough to kind of keep Dallas's defense at bay. And I kind of felt like that's where Tucker lies too. I mean, I think Tucker's no, I don't know that Tucker's better. Like Tucker might be a slightly better ball handler, but UD was just never asked to do that, but he still is a catch and shoot guy, as a rim roller. Like those are things he was capable. Certainly much more athletic than Tucker has been. But
I think PJ Tucker recently is better than Udonis Haslem was in 2006. I think one of the things that I've learned watching the 2006 finals that I didn't necessarily remember back then is that UD is still pretty raw at this point.
Yeah.
UD's best years are still in front of him. I think he's still pretty raw at this point.
But he was a starter. Like he was a starter for the past two seasons. Like it was unbelievable.
I went Rashawn Holmes. Still has that like little floater, that mid-range game. Rashawn Holmes has that. Good defender. Doesn't necessarily need the ball to be effective. I think if Rashawn Holmes obviously plays center now, if you put him back then, he's playing like the same position as Udonis Haslem is. He's playing two guard. I'll go next. Antoine Walker.
Oh wow, I'm curious.
I had a couple of guys here.
All right.
But I almost went Bojan Bogdanovic.
Oh my God. Okay. Bojan, like not Bogdan.
Bojan, the Jazz one.
Yeah. Bojan's a better shooter, right?
I went. Okay. Yeah. I went with Marcus Morris. Just sort of a guy, a 20 and 10 kind of guy. Probably thinks he's better than he is on his current team.
Wait till you hear mine.
Okay,
I went with Julius Randle.
I almost went there. I almost did it.
Like Randall has a total package, but like tying it together is not always great. And it's no slight on Twan. Like Twan was his better years were behind him, but putting up threes, being able to put the ball down. Like I mean, he's so gifted, so versatile, and I think Randall's still there, obviously. Yeah. But the inefficiency is kind of where the parallel that I drew right there.
Yeah. I almost went there, but I didn't want to disrespect our guest. Maybe it was a month since with the interview, I would have went there. All right, last one's Dwyane Wade. Who do you got?
Jimmy Butler.
Oh.
Jimmy Butler. I got Jimmy Butler. I think like Jimmy Butler stepping up in the playoffs, the jumper, the fact that we saw Jimmy hitting threes as good as he was, getting to the line, I think that's who we saw from Dwyane Wade. I see Dwyane Wade and I see Jimmy Butler.
I went John Morant. I just can't help but watch Dwyane Wade. Watching Dwyane Wade get to the rim, flip up these bank shot layups, whip these super athletic passes out from the trees of the Dallas Mavericks onto the out to the perimeter, and just the athleticism was so apparent, leaping and dunking off of 2 feet with very little runway. It was very reminiscent of me, what I saw from John Morant in the playoffs this last year. I'm a big John Morant fan too, so that's probably where this is coming from. But yeah, I think like people are making the Dwyane Wade comparisons to John Morant recently, and so yeah, this was young Dwyane Wade. It's why the comparison to me is a good one. Let's go to Dallas. Jason Terry.
Tough.
I have him as Terry Rozier, not just because of the Terry thing, but they basically average the same stuff. Capable of taking over a game, but not all the time. Like 1 out of every 7 or 8 they'll take over with big games. But a serviceable, high level, role playing point guard.
I had I didn't even think of him I think of him more as a 2 guard out there.
Terry Rozier is kind of like that, right? Not like really dishing passes a whole lot, but capable.
I had CJ McCollum, probably more shake and bake in general, but just the strength from the mid-range game, able to do so much there. I like the Rozier comp better, to be honest with you.
Yeah, me too. Mine's better.
But yeah.
Adrian Griffin. Even though they switched it for this game, Devin Harris, like you mentioned earlier in the show, we can go either one.
I don't know. That was tough. I was trying to think of just a defensive-only guy who has the occasional spark there. I don't know. I went with Lou Dort, but that's probably he's too undersized there. I didn't really have anybody else. I couldn't think of anybody else.
I went Matisse Thybulle. You mentioned the occasional spark from Adrian Griffin. I have not seen it on any occasion yet, so he's just a complete zero there on
game
offense.
1.
I literally don't.
Game 1, he had a stretch there. I picked him as the backbreaker of the game there for the Dallas Mavericks. I think in game 1 he had a couple of jumpers in a row there. That's why.
I went with Matisse Thybulle. This is probably closest we're gonna get.
Thybulle's bad offensively though, and I don't think Griffin he doesn't get those touches. Thybulle's just like when he has the ball in his hands, like you don't want him to have the ball in his hands.
That's true.
But yeah, Josh Howard. I went with Jaylen Brown.
Okay.
Athletic.
Yeah.
Explosive. Does some damage from the outside. Inside again, different styles of play in general, just because of 2006 versus 2020. One-time All-Star versus one-time All-Star. Who knows what happens down the road?
Similar thing. I went Andrew Wiggins, kind of same sort of player archetype. Also one-time All-Star. A little bit worse than Jaylen Brown. I think that giving Josh Howard the Jaylen Brown treatment is a little. I would take Jaylen Brown now over Josh Howard then. You know what I mean? I think Jaylen Brown's a better player.
I think people thought that he had a higher upside. That he got paid a lot of money. He left as a free agent. He got paid, and
but
I lived up to it.
I like how Howard will get his points without plays being run for him, and I feel Wiggins does the same thing. I'll go get an offensive rebound, kind of cut to the basket, and this kind of thing. Where it feels like Jaylen Brown, he doesn't need plays run for him, but he definitely gets those run for him more, and that's probably more an indictment on the Celtics coaching than. But whatever, both are the same type of thing. Dirk Nowitzki, this one's pretty obvious.
Is it? Who do you have?
Oh, I just had Cat. I had Karl Anthony Towns. This is the closest comp I could find. Yeah.
Huh.
A little soft
I thought KD.
at this point, kind of questionable in the postseason right now, but obviously stretching the floor, doing things that we haven't seen from that position.
I had KD.
Like now KD?
What's the difference? Like now KD versus KD like
not much of a difference, I guess. KD's a good comp. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, just he's got the mid range. He's got the the unstoppable jumper. And I think that's anything. It's credit to Dirk. Like KD
yeah.
patterned his game to some extent after KD. I mean, KD patterned his game after Dirk. You know, the jumper and things of that sort. So I think that's like he is an impactful player in NBA history. As much as he struggled in this series, like eventually he wound up changing the course of the big man and things that's one.
He played at MVP level this season. The Jop/Dampier center spot. I have Nerlens Noel. Just a guy who's defensive oriented, 7-footer, just kind of does his job, doesn't need a ton of touches. The broadcast had some crazy stat that Jop had yet to attempt a field goal until game 4, which I didn't even realize, but makes total sense. That screams to me Nerlens Noel, just a guy who just doesn't touch the ball on offense, but just plays hard defensively.
I had Dwight Howard nowadays, like current Dwight Howard.
Yeah.
Foul, big body, rebound, just out there.
All right, let's get up to our finishing categories here. Where does this game rank within the context of the series in watchability?
I think it's a 2 right now. I think Game 3 was still the best game of the series so far. Game 2, just the way that the changes took place, the tweaks here, the offense from Miami in general. Yeah, I think I'd have it as the second best game of the series.
I'm with you. The Mark Cuban angry scale, it's a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the angriest Mark Cuban will get, 1 being the opposite of that. We had it at a 3.5, I think, or a 3 the last game. I've got it at a 3.5 here. Yeah. Should it be higher? Because there are moments where, like, there's a moment there in the fourth quarter where I think Antoine Walker hits a 3-pointer, and the camera pans to Mark Cuban, and he's just got his arm crossed looking pouty.
Yeah. See, pouty, not angry yet. Like, I think we're starting to see the buildup, like frustration. Like, I don't think he thought they were going to be as bad as they were in Game 4. So he's just more like maybe worried, apprehensive, and he's got that nervous look in his eye there. That's where I'd put him at right now. Not quite angry yet, but we know it's coming. But it just hasn't happened yet.
Our final category: has Dwyane Wade yet achieved legendary status? David.
And let me clarify something for somebody who left a comment about this via YouTube. He was not a superstar in 2006. That's what we're getting at. Yes. Finals MVP 2006, sure. MVP candidate for the next couple seasons. Great player during the Big 3 era, etc. Yes, we know all what's going to happen. But at 2006, I don't think he was a superstar. I don't think he was yet a superstar. But they're starting to see a trend in that direction. Like, again, the marketing, that's such a big step for me. It's like the way they talk about a player is they want the casual fan to go, oh, yeah, that's a guy. Like, think about it in today's game. Like, you ask somebody who doesn't really watch basketball, they're not going to know who the hell Giannis Antetokounmpo is. They're not going to be able to pronounce his name. But you hear Mike Breen saying, what a great story, starting off panhandling in Greece or whatever, selling trinkets on the street.
The 2021 broadcast, the way they treated Giannis is a very good comparison, where they were just telling the story over and over and over again. This is like, and in here, it's constantly grew up watching Michael Jordan.
Yes.
In Chicago, all this stuff.
Chicago native.
Right. This is why we have this. We know what Dwyane Wade becomes. We are watching it unfold, which is why this is so it's why it's so interesting. And after Game 3, we said, had he yet achieved legendary status? And we said, no. It takes more than one game to achieve legendary status. He's now had 2 great games in a row, and that's why I have it as not yet, but now it's almost in that kind of realm as sort of, you start talking about guys as a future Hall of Famer, you kind of know that they're on that trajectory and kind of things like that. This is where we're getting to. This is 2 great games in a row for him. And it's clear that what we're watching here, what we're witnessing here is something very special. But it's still just too early to say, yeah, this dude is a legend already.
But they marvel at individual plays the way they only do when it's like a superstar or a star type player that they're trying to market and push. It's like every jumper was like, oh, that's only something he can do. Like you be like fawning over Dwyane, which is not something that he typically does. But yeah, it was pretty interesting to see.
It's evident. It's almost a guarantee that it's going to happen, but it's still just too early to say it.
60%. That's kind of where I have it there. Like he's not quite a superstar, but 60%.
60% there as a superstar. All right, that'll do it for our Game 4 NBA Finals 2006 rewatch here on Locked On Heat. Of course, you can find all of the previous games on our YouTube channel or in your podcast feed. If you are not subscribed yet to Locked On Heat, please do so. We will continue with this NBA Finals rewatch, and we still have the Heat news coming your way. If you haven't checked out the latest episode regarding the latest news on Kevin Durant, that is also up on YouTube and in your podcast feed, so check that out as well. But for now, that'll do it for us today. Thanks for joining me, David.
You got it, Wes.